There we
Welcome,
go. Got it.
everyone, to Sovereign AF, episode 12. My name is Regina Cornelio. I am your host, and I am so excited for tonight's episode. I have my friend Saidy here. We are going to talk about um, herbal growing, medicinal herbs, gardening, all things having to do with, permaculture, homesteading. So hold on to your seats. Sadie is a lifelong gardener and intuitive. She trained under renowned herbalists. I'll try to say their names in case anyone
All
knows
good.
of these people. Um, Asia Suler, Yarrow Willard, and Sajah Popham. So if you're in the herbalism realm, you probably know those names. I don't, but I'm sure they're a big deal. She's also a trained Reiki Master, and she lives an organic and sustainable lifestyle. She has a medicinal herb farm and honeybee hives, which is another topic I'm really interested in. And she has a permaculture homestead in Texas. She's also a wife and mother of four, two cats, and ducks.
It's
So
orchids.
I can't wait to learn how is she doing all of that. But welcome, Sadie. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Regina.
Yeah. So tell us more. I want to know. I know your a little bit of your backstory, and I'm sure that they want to know you have lived in so many different places. And seems like you've been into gardening and all this stuff for a long time. So just give us like a quick summary of your backstory and moving to different places and how you got into gardening and herbalism.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that a
this
word?
kind.
Herbalism?
Yeah. I'm an herbalist. Yeah, I practice herbalism.
Okay.
You,
All
you
right,
got it. You
good.
got it, girl. So I always say this funny, like contradictory lifestyle that I have is that I'm a big traveler. I've moved all around the world, and I also do things that are like very anchoring with the land. So I have a
Hmm.
homestead and I'm a gardener and I'm like very attached to the land. So it's this interesting sort of play between two worlds. But I got started with gardening with my mom and my dad. I was
Where
born
were
on
you
a
born, if
I
you
was
don't
born
mind?
in South Bend, Indiana. So if anybody
Okay, so
knows
that's where you
the
started.
University of Notre Dame, everybody's like, we're South Bend. And everybody knows Notre Dame. It's a
Okay.
Catholic university. My grandfather was
Hmm.
a professor there for 50 years. So I was born on my parents, I guess what you could call a little homestead. It was like 2 acres. And they were not, I mean, well, my grandfather, so my mom's dad was a big time gardener. He's a World War II vet. So once he came back from the war, it's like he poured his heart into that. He also built houses, but it sort of translated, like through to her and influenced her. And so when my parents were young, they were homesteaders. So like some of my earliest memories are snapping peas with my mom on the porch when I was like, 2 or something. But by the time I was about 10, I sort of took over the gardens. I had
Hmm.
more interest at that point than my parents did anymore. And I mean, this is like, back in the 90s. So like I was getting catalogs, like seed catalogs, ordering, like filling it out, like mailing it in right before the internet. And that was my first real, like, having responsibility over a garden. When I was 16, I moved to Chicago. I was going to an art school there. And so from about then until 24, I was living in Chicago and then San Francisco. And so I didn't really, that's like the only period I didn't really have a lot of access to space. So I wasn't really gardening. Maybe I would have, like indoor plants and things like that. But once I'd been in San Francisco for a few years and I met my husband traveling in South America, he made me, I was like really missing it. And so he made me these wooden like planter boxes that he hung outside our windows. So this
Aw.
is like my introduction to urban agriculture. And so my main focus in gardening was urban agriculture from about the time I was 25 until 3 years ago, when I was like 35. I was living in big cities. So I was living in San Francisco, then Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and then Toronto, Canada. And so each time I got a little bit bigger of a space, but I always like encourage people that like don't feel limited if you are living in an apartment. Like you can do it. You can have window boxes and you can even have a balcony. And so in the window boxes, I was growing broccoli, I was growing lettuces, spinach, I was growing all sorts of like interesting vegetables and greens and things like that just in a box outside my window. So once I moved to Toronto, I finally had like a yard. Like it was small and there was a lot of shade because, there's big buildings everywhere because we were downtown. But at that point, I had already been an herbalist for a while. And so like I finally had space to start my medicinal garden and it was mostly that. And then I had some vegetables. And then 3 years ago, I moved to my first homestead. And it's just sort of like grown and grown and grown since
That's
that.
awesome. So I definitely have to ask, wow, what made you bounce around so much?
I think it's like something in my, like if you call it like my soul mission or like my divine
Mm,
blueprint, maybe like an aspect of grid work. I've always been really like my one of my majors in college was anthropology, so I've always been really interested in other cultures. Um, so yeah, just I loved moving around. I traveled a lot in my 20s. I met my husband in South America. We were traveling for a year
that's
just
so
like
cool.
backpacking. But yeah, so I
Wow.
was already living in San Francisco. He came to meet me there. And then we just like, we wanted to leave. He wanted a career change. And so he got into Erasmus University in Rotterdam. We were like, we had a kid. We had one, our oldest then, she was a baby and we missed traveling. We were like, how are we going to travel with a baby? And we're like, well, if you want to get your MBA, like, let's go to Europe and get it there. So we relocated there. And then
Mhm.
we were there for about 3 years. And he had the opportunity to start a business with someone he was working with there in Canada because his business partner was Canadian. And so we were sort of missing home. And it was like Canada was sort of like a nice mix. Like it wasn't still the US. We weren't ready to not be expats anymore, but it was like close enough, still North America, like similar culture. So yeah, that's why we moved there.
One last question, and then we'll get into the topic. I'm
Yeah,
just
no worries.
curious. Out of all those places, what's your favorite?
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's like we were talking about this the other day. I asked my husband this the other day. And it's like there's not one place I think that has all of the stuff. Like the best weather was definitely San Francisco,
Mm,
like for sure.
yeah.
But the best community was Toronto. Like, and
Oh,
yeah, I had the most amazing community there. There's still my best friends are still all there. Like my biggest supporters are still all there. It was really hard
wow.
to leave. And yeah, I haven't built that community yet here in Texas. So yeah,
Really
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, there's someone, Irina, in the comments that I think, oh, was that your
I love
girl,
you.
Irina? She's in
Yeah.
Toronto.
Yeah, I miss you, Blue.
Oh, all right. So trying to think of where to start. I'm curious. Let's talk about herbs because the actual topic is medicinal
Growing
herbs,
herbs. Yeah.
and then we can kind of branch off. So, what herbs are you currently growing? And then what do you think is the most important, like if you were to recommend for a beginner? So first off, what herbs are in your garden first?
Man, there's like, I don't have my list. There's like 75 to 80
Oh,
different
never mind.
herbs.
Okay,
I know
skip
there's
that.
so many. If there's an herb that that somebody knows that they want to call it out, like I bet you I'm growing.
Okay, so scratch that. Next
But
question.
I did make a
Um,
list though of like I was thinking about this and I do teach gardening and herbalism and things like that. And I was thinking about it last night, if I was going to say, if somebody said I want to start an herb garden, like what herbs should I grow?
yeah, like where to start?
Total
Like what are the most, I guess,
like
useful?
versatile or
Because this
easy.
podcast is all about sovereign solutions.
Yeah.
So let's go to the basics. Like if someone was brand new and they just had a small amount of space and they can only start with like a few, like 10 or less,
Hmm.
what do you think is the most useful that is going to be beneficial to them and their family, maybe?
So I did write a list. I have 11, not
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
But
Let's go
honestly,
through it.
like just to start generally, the herbs that I recommend people start with are the ones that they already know. So we're talking about like what you would think of as culinary herbs. So
Right.
that would be like parsley,
Mm.
sage, rosemary, oregano, thyme, lavender, things like that. The first ones that I mentioned, parsley, oregano, thyme, rosemary, and sage, those, it's like, first of all, they're culinary. So you already are familiar with them and you would know how to use them, right? So the
Hmm.
learning curve isn't as steep. If I give you time, you're probably going to be able to make a meal with it, right? If I give you
Right.
rosemary, you're going to think, oh, I already use rosemary. I can think of a dish to use that in. So they're
Hmm.
really versatile in that way. They're already familiar to most people, I would think. And
Hmm.
they're really easy to grow. A lot of these, other than rosemary, which is trickier to start by seed because it's a woody perennial, you could get it at
Hmm.
any garden store, a small one just to
Hmm.
start, but all the other ones are grown really easily from seed. That's the great thing about herbs, is that compared to growing other things, like I have a really big vegetable garden, I grow fruit trees and things like that. Like herbs are the easiest, they're the most adaptable. You can grow them in like any climate, any soil. Like these are like what some, it can be considered weeds often. So like they're
Hmm.
going to grow in your shit soil, excuse my language. They're
No,
going to
that's
grow in
okay.
rocky soil. They're going to grow in clay. Like you're not going
Yeah.
to have to spend a bunch of money amending the soil and things like that. They're going to grow in containers. They're going to grow on a balcony. They're going to grow with suboptimal sunlight. You know,
Mm.
like when I had the garden in Toronto, we only probably had 4 to 6 hours of direct sunlight, which is like, you're not growing tomatoes. Like, sorry, it's not going to happen. You're not growing peppers, especially that far north. Like, you're just not going to get the heat in the sun. And plants like that need a lot more like nutrition in the soil. But herbs they're really forgiving. They're really adaptable, and the culinary herbs are actually quite medicinal, like very powerful, like thyme, oregano.
Mm.
These are herbs that are really, really antimicrobial and antiseptic. So they're not even just like antibacterial. They're also like antimicrobial would mean like they prevent and kill like viruses, fungi,
So
bacteria.
how would you switch from culinary to medicinal? Let's shift into that a little bit and then you can finish telling me the rest of your
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
Like
So
how
I
would
mean,
you like if you had time and cilantro and whatever and you wanted to switch to medicinal, do you dry it and like have it in a tea or a tincture? Or
oh,
like
I
what do
see what
you
you're saying. How would I use the culinary herbs in like a medicinal preparation?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Like
there's, I
basic.
mean,
We're taking it down to the basics.
yeah, yeah. You can use them really in the same ways that you would use something like, echinacea or mullein or some of these more like what people would think are exotic. They're not exotic, they're native, but these sort of like far out sounding herbs, you use them in the same way. So I actually cover a lot of this in my ebook, which is on my website. You can just go sign up for my mailing list and you'll get it for free. It's 45 pages and it'll tell you all the different ways that you can prepare the herbs. So one thing you can do obviously is you just dry them and use them in culinary preparations. And other ways are infusions. So you can infuse in oil. So you could dry your thyme and you can put it in olive oil and then you can use that for culinary purposes. You can infuse it in honey. So thyme and sage in particular are really good for like sore throats. They're good at reducing dry cough. Like if you have a wet cough, you want to be able to get it out. But if it's a dry cough, it's really just nagging and you sort of want it to be soothed and stop. So thyme and sage are really, really great for that. So you can infuse it in honey and you can take that like literally just by the spoonful. You can infuse them in vinegar, and that's like one example of a vinegar infusion would be like fire cider, if people are familiar with fire
I've
cider.
heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a traditional folk remedy. The fire cider that I make and that most herbalists make have lots of things in them, but honestly most of the herbs that I use in my fire cider are my culinary herbs. I use thyme, I use oregano, I use rosemary. So you can use them in all of those preparations. Another thing that you can do is with your oil infusion, you can turn it into a salve or a balm so that you can use it for like skin inflammation. Like we're talking about psoriasis, eczema, like boo-boos, like your kids, like bruises, contusions, scrapes, bug bites, rashes, like all of those sorts of things.
Awesome. So cool. It's amazing all the things that you can do. So what else is on your list of 11? So you told us, yeah, you
Yeah, I
told us a
said parsley,
few.
oregano, thyme, rosemary,
Okay.
sage. So also any basil. So like my favorite is Tulsi, which is also known as holy basil. So this is a basil that originates from India. They call it holy basil because they have it at every single like holy site, like where they do, their rituals, like Hindu rituals and things like that.
Mhm.
But it's a very like sweet, earthy, pungent herb. It's also an adaptogen. So basically, like people that are in the health world might be familiar with that term, adaptogens. There's lots of different
Yeah.
herbs and mushrooms and things like that that are adaptogens. And basically, what that means is that it helps your body build a resistance to stressors. So it helps your body to adapt more to stressors and keeps you at like a higher equilibrium of homeostasis. So it's
Mm.
like we're all under stress. Like it's right. We
Yeah,
all have
especially
stress.
now.
Right? We all have bouts of anxiety. And it's
Yeah.
not even just necessarily like stress and anxiety. It could be, like things that you wouldn't necessarily correlate to the nervous system, like
Right.
sleep issues or, mood swings or mood disorders and things like that.
Mm.
So basil, all the basils are really easy to grow, but Tulsi in particular is a fantastic herb. I include it in lots of my herbal teas.
Mm.
Calendula is
What is that
probably
good for?
Calendula
Calendula.
is amazing. It's probably one of my favorites, but it's so easy to grow. It's so easy to grow. You could literally just like throw the seed on the ground and it'll grow. You know what it looks like? It's these beautiful, they look like little suns, these beautiful orange flowers, which are
I think
also
I need to
prepared.
grow some in my tower garden because I've seen other people do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It grew calendula in there. Yeah. It would need to be somewhat sunny, but it's not quite as like if you had like 6 hours or something like that of sun. But calendula is most famous for its affinity to skin inflammation, so it's really popular to use in balms and salves and
Mm.
oils and things like that for skin
Skin
inflammation.
inflammation. Because someone had a question, Judy, in the chat. So since you just mentioned skin inflammation,
Mm-hmm.
what else would you recommend for that? And then she said, talk more about psoriasis. Like what herbs would you do you know what you would recommend for psoriasis?
Psoriasis is really tough. I actually have psoriasis.
Mm,
Yeah, it's hard because it's technically an autoimmune condition.
right.
So it's like dealing with it at the skin level is really only a band-aid because all of our skin issues are actually internal issues.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. So there has to be some sort of a balance internally, like for a root cause. But as far as like soothing the inflammation and the redness and the itchiness and things like that, making it easier to live with, there's nothing wrong with it, of course. Calendula is great for that. It reduces itchiness, it reduces redness, it brings down the inflammation. So it makes you more comfortable in your skin. Something that you might want to take internally, though, would be burdock root.
Mm.
That's something that you can grow really easily from seed as well. It's sort of tricky to find fresh in the stores. Maybe like Whole Foods would be an option that would say, I know I've seen it there, but like otherwise it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to find. You might have to order it from a place like Mountain Rose Herbs. You could get
Mm.
it and you would drink it in like a tea form. I do include burdock in my fire cider and my elderberry syrup that are on my site.
Cool. I can't wait to learn all about all the stuff that you have. And I'm already familiar because I get some of your stuff anyway.
Yeah,
But
you do.
so in order to make a salve, you would take the calendula and like mix it with
Well,
what
yeah,
would you mix it?
you would start with an oil. So you'd
Okay.
start with an oil infusion. So you usually when you're doing an oil infusion or a honey infusion, you want to dry your herbs first
Okay.
because yeah, especially herbs and flowers, they have a high water content. And if you
Mm,
add the fresh herbs, you're going to have a pretty high water content going into your oil or your honey mixture, and that can, increase the risk of spoilage. So you want to dry it first. And
mm,
so again, like I cover this in the ebook, like so you can get like actual recipes and ratios, but for the purposes of explaining it now, basically you would do like if you're going to fill up a quart jar, it doesn't have to be, it's not super, it doesn't have to be super scientific. Okay. Like we're like, we can do folk herbalism here, which is like in your kitchen, the way the grandmas did it,
Love it.
So
Love
you
it.
get like a mason jar, right? Like a ball jar,
Mm-hmm.
quart size or smaller if you don't have very much. And you'd
Mm-hmm.
fill your jar up like halfway ish. And with your dried calendula, you pour the oil over it to the top, and then you close it and you need to write a date on it. You always need to write what's in there because you can forget. Trust me. And the date that you did it. And you want to leave it for about 4 weeks to, it's like a slow infusion. If you needed it, like, oh my gosh, my son just got a horrible burn and we need it now, you can do
Mm.
a gentle heating method. So you could put that oil, the calendula and the oil in the jar, and you put it in a water bath on the stove, and you heat it as low as possible. Like we're talking like a low simmer,
Mm-hmm.
for at least 45 minutes, maybe an hour or 2 hours. And then you just strain it out and you have your oil, and that's like your base. So to go on from there to make a salve, there's ratios and things like that. But depending on how soft you want the salve, how hard you want it, but really if it was really super simple, you're just going to add beeswax. So you're gonna mix in, like, basically it's like a 3-to-1 or a 5-to-1 ratio of the infused oil to beeswax being the smaller amount. So if you have like 5 ounces of your oil, you're going to do like 1 ounce of beeswax. You're going to melt it on a double boiler, pour it into your jars, and then it just hardens. And that's
And
it.
if you're lucky enough to have your own beehives, then you have all
Then you got the wax too.
you've
Yeah.
got all your own wax. All right. Awesome. Thank you for that rundown.
Yeah.
So, what else is on your list? And then we'll shift to something else. I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, I can
What
just rattle some off. Lavender. Everybody knows
Okay.
lavender. That's also something that you'd probably want to buy as a start. It's also a woody perennial like rosemary, so it's a little tricky. You can do it, but it's trickier. So if we're talking about first beginners, like I've done this, just buy a start. Just buy a little plant at the nursery. Lavender is also really great for skin. Everybody probably knows that. It's also like aromatherapy, calming for the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Yarrow, you can also start from seed, but might want to start with a start. Yarrow is a great wound healer, so also would be something great to put in a salve. And it's also really great for the immune system. It's a natural fever support. So we don't recommend fever reducers. Fever's your friend, but it can be uncomfortable, and we want
There
sometimes the
you
fever
go.
to break, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without taking pharmaceuticals. So yarrow would be our friend there. We have some yarrow tea or a yarrow tincture. We would want to take it internally for fever,
Mm-hmm.
and it can help that fever break. So it gives us,
Ooh, love that tip. That's a good one.
especially with kids when they can't
Yeah.
sleep, you're like, oh, I need relief. Like I need this sleep. Like a
Mm-hmm.
little yarrow tincture. You'd want to do it in a tincture as the tea is bitter.
I love
And
that.
then
Instead of just
go ahead,
leaning
sorry.
on aspirin that's gonna cause harm. That's a really good tip.
Yeah, yeah. And then the last two are lemon balm and echinacea. These are, I would say,
Mm.
moderately easy to start by seed, not necessarily for beginners, but maybe like your second season. It just has more steps. But lemon balm is really a great ally for the nervous system. So it also tastes good. It's a mint family plant, so it has like a lemony, minty flavor. It's like you could drink the tea all day. It tastes really great. But yeah, overall, like soothing the nervous system, rebuilding the nervous system. And then echinacea, which is sort of like, everybody's favorite.
A lot of people know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's elderberry and echinacea. Like everybody knows about those. So echinacea is fantastic. But at the same time, you also have to recognize when you're planting these things, like what's the life cycle? When do I harvest it? What part of the plant do I use? So like echinacea, you
Yeah.
can use the flower. You can use the flower. It's just not as potent as the root. The root is what we tend to use. Um, Now I do use the flowers in my preparations and things like that, especially if you need it. It's just not as powerful, and you don't harvest the roots for 3 years, so it's sort of a long play.
Wow.
Yeah, so all those, like most of the root herbs, you're talking like 2 or 3 years before you can harvest. So
And do you garden year round? I know you're
I
in
do
Texas.
now.
You do now. So you can do that year round, huh?
Yeah,
Lucky.
it's been a learning curve though, because I was in Toronto for like 6 years. And I mean, I'm
Mhm.
from the north, like I'm from the Chicago area. So not
Right.
having a hard winter, I was really stoked when I moved here, like, oh my God, I'll be able to garden year round. But honestly, like the summers here are brutal, and that's sort of like our
Yeah.
winter. There are things that grow, but a lot of things die back. So it's similar in that way as winter in the north, that like things just they
Because
go
it's so hot.
subterranean. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hot. I hear
Yeah,
you.
but
So,
otherwise, like, yeah, there are things, and it's like adapting, like you're talking about going on a move too soon. So it's like you have to adapt to the climate that you're in. And then part
mhm,
of the beauty in that is like, okay, well, like there's a lot of experimentation that goes on, but then you start to see like these are plants that grow naturally here. These are maybe native plants, like, so that's
mhm.
also helping the ecosystem. But at the same time, like these are plants that you can rely on because they grow really well where you are. And so I've shifted some of my tea blends and some of my tincture blends and some of like my medicine offerings based on what now is growing here. So I've had to make some switches, like instead of using skullcap all the time, which grew great there, doesn't grow great here, I use passion flower because it's like a weed here, and I actually like there's too much of it. So yeah, there's a lot. You have to be adaptable.
So what else is in your garden? I know you've got like 75 herbs. Do you have any other fruits and vegetables? I'm just curious what else you grow.
Yeah, I have I'm like pointing back here, like you can see it. It's back there. It's dark. I have 10 raised beds that I use just for vegetables and
Okay.
fruits in the summer. So melon. So right now, for us in zone 8B here in South Central Texas, it's
Mhm.
basically like spraying gardening in the north, because y'all don't have a second, like it's like second spring here. Fall here is it's like the second major growing season. So we have spring, and then summer everything dies, and then fall.
You
So
have
I have,
spring, summer, spring.
yeah, pretty much. And then it just starts again because we don't really have a winter. So right now I have all sorts of Asian greens, which are really fun. I've got like Chinese cabbage, bok choy,
Mm.
mizuna. I have mustard greens, collard greens, all the brassica family. So that's like your kale, cabbage, cauliflower,
Mm.
collards. I just planted today. I planted peas, snap peas, and regular peas. And I just planted garlic and onions. So those aren't quite, they just started to like poke through. Like those won't be harvested until the winter. But also lots of herbs. I've got oregano, I've got parsley, dill, fennel, cilantro, all sorts of stuff.
That's so cool that you can garden year round, and so can I, because I got the indoor
Right.
one, which is awesome. I'm learning to garden. So I'm the opposite of you, how you said you grew up watching your mom and by 10 you took over the garden. I used to make fun of my mom, like
You're
and her
lame.
gardening. And I used to be like, "Oh, you're going to garden? All right, bye." Like I would make fun of her. And now
Yeah.
I'm like, I am so hyped up on this tower
I love
garden.
it. I love
And
it.
I've got like these little, you'd be surprised. I have watermelon. I have everything in there because it has light and it has water as much of the day as you want.
And it's
It's
in those like rock wool, right? Is that what you planted
yeah.
it in?
I
Okay.
don't know what, I forget what those things are
I
called,
think
but
it's rock wool. I think I saw a picture on your Instagram. It's like kind of
yeah.
hard, but also fluffy little like
Yeah, it's kind
bricks.
of like squishy when it gets wet. It's weird. It's
Yeah,
weird.
it's rock
But
wool.
yeah. And so I have watermelon. I have tons of stuff in there. And I have like little sprouts coming out. I'm like, oh my God, I hope I don't kill you. I hope that I'm doing this right. I don't know what I'm doing, but yeah, I used to make fun of my mom, and now I'm like super, like one of my most favorite things I'm excited about is the tower garden.
I
So
love it. I love it.
it's funny how you can just kind of come full circle. And I think
Totally.
growing your own food, I mean, that's one of the biggest sovereign resources we can talk about. Like, it might be boring to some people, but if you understand what's being put in our food,
Yeah.
um, I don't buy meat from the grocery store anymore. at
Mm-hmm.
all.
Yeah, I've
I'm
got farmers that I get
lucky
my meat
here in
from. Yeah.
Idaho that I get all of my meat from the farms. I get all of my dairy from the farms. I try to only have raw dairy.
Same.
I
Yeah.
get as much of my fruits and vegetables from farms as I can. It's harder in the winter, without farmers markets if you don't know people. But now I've got the Tower Garden, but
Yeah.
um, I try to like buy as little from the grocery store as I mean, even organic, the
I know.
guidelines on that you can't trust. I mean,
It's just there's a
ugh,
lot of power that you can reclaim in knowing exactly where your food came from. So like
right.
if the best thing is obviously growing your own food. I mean, you build a
Yeah.
relationship with these plants, you know them intimately,
Yes.
like you gave them your
Yes.
love, you raised them, you have this story with them, like you can remember like when they were just a seedling, you know.
You know,
It's
I
it's a beautiful.
connected to these little babies, and even my cat loves them. And
Oh,
so
really? You can grow
let's,
catnip. That's one of my favorite
no, I
herbs.
need to because I think
It's
she's a
so
little
easy to
scared.
grow. It
She's a
will
little
like take over
scared.
your garden. That's how well it grows. Seriously. But
She's,
no, she'll.
I
I get cats
just,
all the time. I have two cats, but like the neighborhood
yeah.
cats will come in my huge
And
cat
they'll just eat your catnip and get high.
and just like lay in the bushes because they become these like huge. They can become huge bushes if they have the space. Yeah, but
Yeah.
catnip is interesting just on this note because you brought it up. It has the opposite effect on humans. So it's a
Oh.
stimulant for cats, but it's actually what we call an herbal nervine for humans.
Mm,
So it's
mm,
actually one of the most potent herbal nervines that we have at our disposal. It's also in the mint family, so that's why it grows like crazy. But it's something that I put in my like Zen blend, herbal teas that are
mm.
designed to help with stress, anxiety, sleep issues, things like that. Catnip is like the magic
So I need to
ingredient.
grow that because also I thought it calms cats. It has the opposite effect. I
No,
need to
and
find
it
something
stimulates
calming.
them. Yeah.
But I think she's a little bit afraid. She'll get used to the tower garden because it makes noise. Like it waters itself. It uses aeroponics. So
Okay.
last night she slept in bed with me because I finally set it up
She's like,
last
what the?
night. And she's like, "Wait, it's making noise?" And like the water goes on, I think every 45 minutes. And she's like,
She's like,
she's a scaredy
WTF.
cat. But so okay, I'll have to get some catnip going.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Um,
Just keep it
oh,
maybe on the lower part so she doesn't like jump
right.
on your
And then she'll be
couch.
hyper all night, waking me up. I don't need that. I do not need that. But
Daytime snack. Yeah.
I love what you said about connecting with your plants. Let's dive into that a little bit because um I plants have a consciousness. I don't know if people know that. And um long story short, I was vegan for a couple years. I was not healthy as a vegan. I did not feel healthy. I'm no longer a vegan, but I watched an episode on Gaia.com. I don't know if you've ever seen
Oh yeah.
Gaia.com.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Wisdom Teachings with David Wilcock?
No, but I know David Wilcock, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had an episode where he showed it's probably similar to the plant wave machine that I have,
Oh,
but it was like
okay.
a
Yeah.
machine where they put little microbes on the
Hmm.
plant and it measured the frequency of the plant.
Okay.
And it was like a beautiful frequency. And then they put the plant in a boiling pot of water and the frequency was like,
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Yeah.
so it kind of proved the point that plants have a consciousness. And
Yeah.
I can feel the consciousness of the plants. I can feel the consciousness of the trees. I've always been kind of sensitive
Hmm.
like that. And I want to know, um, how do you were saying that you kind of teach people to connect with their plants. So tell me about that.
Yeah. It's actually like, I think probably something that is unique in the way that I teach gardening is that I always cover like the intuitive aspect of connecting with your plants because I think it's really important and the plants have a lot of wisdom that they can teach you as well. So it's not just you being a better steward of the land. It doesn't even have to be plants that you're cultivating, right? It can be wild plants, it can be plants that are just growing on your land, it can be plants that are growing in a park nearby.
Hmm.
Like you can connect with any of those plants. You just when you said that the David Wilcock thing, it reminded me of something some research that I'd read that I was teaching to my students, my last organic gardening workshop series, was that there were studies done that plants sent out like a warning sort of frequency to other, when they were getting harvested, to other plants around them.
Right.
And those other plants responded. So like not only are plants sentient, but they're like communicating with each other. Which is,
Yes.
and they're aware enough that they know that they're going to be harvested. So like just we can just talk about respectful harvesting, which is also in the ebook. I cover this. What I always tell people, that you communicate with your plants before you harvest them, and you let them know.
Yes.
Like you don't have to be even harvesting the whole plant. You could be like, let's say calendula. For calendula, basically when you're harvesting, just, you don't harvest the whole plant. You're just popping off flower heads all the time. You're just harvesting the flowers. Before you start popping those flowers off, you let the plant know. And it's a simple, you don't have to be a guru. You don't have to be like meditating every night to be able to communicate with plants. It's literally like you can just talk to them, or you can just say it in your mind. You don't have to be like, oh, well, like, my neighbors might see me talking to plants and they'll think I'm a freak. Like, first of all, fuck your neighbors. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can just, like in your mind, you can let them know, like, first of all, you should ask. I always say you should ask. And then you just need to be open and receptive. And you'll feel if it's a no or a yes. What did you hear in your head? Did you feel like a resistance, or did you feel like, yeah, this is good, I can do this? Like it's a lot easier than people think. So and if you get a yes, you say, okay, let's say you were going to prune something and you're going to snip it. You hold it and you say, okay, I'm going to prune here, because the plant can pull their energy out of that branch or the stem before you cut. It's about like, basically it's just a mindfulness.
Yeah, I want to add to that, because in that same episode, when they were showing the frequency of the plant when you put it in the pot, then they showed you, if you hold the plant and you say thank you, literally that's it. You just say thank you and you put it in, that changed the frequency. So I do this all the time, like a weirdo. Like if you saw me at home and I'm like just making a salad and I'm breaking the lettuce up before I put it in a bowl, I say, I talk to the lettuce like it's my cat. I'm like, thank you, little plant babies. And then
I love it. Oh, it's great.
and my cat's like, what? Like probably getting jealous of the lettuce, but thanking, and I do that to the meat. I do that to the grains, everything. I thank it before I'm going to cook it, before it's going to, change the frequency so that they feel the gratitude. But maybe I also need to say, hey, thank you. I'm about to put you in the pot.
Well, once it's been harvested, like, it's already sort of done that. But like,
right.
it's also good for you, like, because if you're giving the plant gratitude before you consume it, like you're consuming the vibration of that. So it's also healthy for you.
Yes.
To have that, that reciprocity of gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And like you can take the practice, like obviously, like you can take the practice into gardening, into, fostering deeper relationships with your plants. But you can also, like if a tree has to get cut down, like trees are sentient beings as well. Like it's good, like rule of thumb, to let them know like 3 days in advance if you can, before you have to cut it down, like you like give them time, to prepare for that.
Have you ever seen Journey to Truth podcast?
No.
It's one of my favorite podcasts. You have to check it out. But there was an
Yeah.
episode recently on this, and there was a woman, or I think they were just talking about it actually, but they had a woman on who can communicate with trees and plants. And she said that she basically told the woman, hey, if you're going to cut us down, just give us, I think it was like 3 days also.
Yeah.
Just give us like 3 days heads up so we can like prepare of where they're going to kind of shift if it's cut down. And actually the tree was saying, I'm looking forward to it. I want to connect to the river. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Like it
because
was
I guess
gonna.
there was a river right
Mhm.
there as the tree would be cutting down. And it was like kind of looking forward to it, but like had to prepare. And it's
Yeah.
so funny. I've always known that everything has a consciousness. Crystals have a consciousness, rocks,
Mhm.
obviously animals, plants, Mother Earth, right? But I never thought of like giving them a heads up. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really like sort of taking the idea of mindfulness and applying it to gardening or just interacting with the environment around you because it's all sentient
Mm.
despite what we grew up being taught that it's just a rock. Like
Right.
actually yeah,
Yeah.
rocks have a lot of wisdom as well, like crystals, right? We all like people in our sphere know about crystals. Like rocks are the same. Like crystals are rocks, they're just minerals. They're specific minerals that grow in rocks, right? So yeah, and if anyone is interested to learn a little bit more about this, like consciousness as a frequency in things that are considered non-sentient, you could look at the work of Dr. Emoto. Have you ever heard of
Oh,
him?
yes, the water. Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
I make flower essences and I am like a huge proponent of them. I don't know. I know lots of other herbalists like my teachers that make and sell flower essences, but around here and then back in Toronto, I didn't know any other herbalists that focus a lot on flower essences. It's like a little esoteric or whatever. But the when I'm like at a farmer's market or something and people are like, "What are these? Is it smell like something?" Like, no. I like to talk about his work because I think that it's a really good illustration of like the power of vibration and
Mm.
how water can hold that, and how water has a consciousness as well. The other person that just popped into my mind is Veda Austin. Have you ever heard
Mm.
of her?
Yeah, I follow her.
She is has such I think she was inspired by Dr. Emoto, but her work, she has this like freezing technique, this like
Mm.
flash freezing technique, and
Mhm.
she will it's really crazy, but she will like first of all you could say things, right? And we've done these exercises with plants as well. Like I'm talking to my plant and I'm like, I love you, and they grow better. And if you're like, you're a piece of shit, like it doesn't, like it will wither and die,
You
right?
know,
And
I just saw a study that um said that if they play classical music, the
yeah,
plants
yeah,
would
yeah,
grow
yeah,
like but
yeah.
like a lot bigger, not just a little.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they're interactive, right? They're
Mhm.
interacting with the frequency of your words, of your intention,
Mm.
right? And
Mhm.
then yeah, and music, like and I think that in that same study you're talking about, they also played like death metal, and it was like no, not good.
Yeah, not high vibe.
No. But yeah, it's
Most
really
modern music really I mean, even the stuff that, hey, every once in a while I'm at the gym, I need some 80s and some classic rock, some 90s hip hop.
oh for
Not
sure,
the,
yeah.
like not the highest vibrational music.
No, same, yeah, for sure. Need some Taylor Swift sometimes, and my daughter likes Taylor Swift.
Oh my goodness. I feel like all little girls are probably into that.
50s. Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, it's really fascinating. And she is really inspiring. So she's branched off from like she would say, like gratitude or love and then freeze it and see the crystals. But then she also started like showing it pictures. And then the
Mm.
water would crystallize in the pattern of like a picture, like it's like it was a bird, like it would look like a bird. And it's like, can you see, and so the next one she said, can you see this, can you see me? And the water crystallized in the shape of an eye.
Amazing. It
It's
has its
like,
own consciousness, but you know what blows my mind? Because the thought of water, plants having a consciousness, like that doesn't seem crazy to me anymore. But inanimate objects can even hold a consciousness, believe it or not. Not, I don't know about everything,
oh,
but they can
mhm.
hold a consciousness like a home, even a
Oh yeah.
car. And
Hmm.
so that's wild. That's really wild stuff. If you want to say anything about that, or I have a couple questions to get to in a second, but like in the
Oh,
chat.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can go with the questions. All I would say, like, as far as the thing that popped into my head when you talked about the home is like clearing your space because your home
Yes.
is like you're
Yes.
connected to your home, and
Right.
everyone that lives within your home also has a connection with your home. And so, when we all get in bad moods, we're all like feeling
Yeah.
emotions, and there's like,
Right.
you can think about it like energetic debris, right? And then let's say you
Mm.
have visitors that come over, if family comes over, that
And they
tough
have
family member.
lingering energy. Yes.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
home, it holds that. And so I
Yeah.
recommend like every 2 weeks, burning sage, mugwort, other sacred herbs, high vibe
Mm.
incense,
Hmm.
and clearing the space. And really, it's all, again, it's about mindfulness and intention. So you're stating your intention, like I am clearing the
Mm.
space of any negative energies, any dense, stagnant energies. And then once you've, gone through every room, then you open up all the windows and then you
Mm.
cast it out. You're like, I'm releasing you now. And then sometimes what people like to do is maybe you diffuse some high vibe essential oils. Maybe you burn like,
Hmm.
Palo Santo, which
I
can,
like Palo Santo. I like the smell better too than sage.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like Palo Santo too. Like I
I
really
like the
like, you have to
smell
be like,
better.
try to make sure it's sustainable and all that, like where you're buying it from. But yeah, and then you close all the windows and it really does help a lot. You can also do it on your land. Like if you have land, I do the perimeter. So I'll just
Mm.
walk, in a fire safe sort of a way. I'll walk with my burning herbs and I'll do like the perimeter of my land, walk around with it. Just so you're just being
Mm.
mindful, you're stating your intentions, and it's that
I like
simple.
that. I heard you could also do like a grid with crystals, like a grid around
Oh yeah, for sure.
while you're
Yeah.
doing that.
Hmm.
Awesome. Love
Yeah.
it. So I scrolled back. I missed a question. Judy said, how do you use passion flower? It's wild here in Kentucky.
Okay, so first of all, there's two major types of passion flower. You have to figure out which one yours is because one of them's poisonous and one of them's
Mm.
not.
Okay.
So quick Google search, take a picture of your passion flower and just Google it. That being
Mm.
said, passion flower is a nervine. It's really, really great for stress, all sorts of
Yes.
stress. So
Yes.
anxiety, overwhelm, looping thoughts. I also use
Mm.
it as a flower essence specifically for that. Like people that find themselves like spiraling, like mentally.
I
It's
need
it
some of that.
Yeah, no, seriously, we all do it,
Too
but
many
some people
thoughts. It's
tend to
not like
like,
negative, but it's just overactive.
yes, yeah, an overactive mind. That's why I like looping thoughts, like where you're
Yes.
almost like stuck in this loop. Passion flower is
Yeah.
really, really great specifically for that.
What about
Um,
lemon balm? Isn't that good too, or is that
Lemon
different?
balm is more of like a general soothing the nervous system. It's
Okay.
yeah, I use them in combination a lot.
Hmm.
Um, but passion flower is better for that really like overactive mind, or like if you find you're like get stuck in the mentalism, which I know I do. I tend to be a very like mental, like I'm a planner. We talked about this before. Like
Hmm.
I like to think my way out of things, which isn't always the best. Like it's actually something I'm working on, leading more of the heart, less with the mind. But if
Going
you
with the
find
flow.
that you're a mind-based person and you get stuck in there, like, oh, I gotta figure this out, or what about this? I'm playing out worst case scenarios. I've got to think about all my, you know what I mean? That's like mentalism. That's overactive thinking. So
Mhm.
passion flower is really good for that.
Awesome. Another question. What about witch hazel? How to make a stronger preparation for scalp? Do you know anything
Hmm.
about that?
Do they have witch hazel? Like a plant, or I guess they're buying it. You're buying it in
So
like
I
leaf form.
guess so I guess let's assume she has it because she said, what about witch hazel? How to make a stronger preparation for scalp. So assuming that you have the witch hazel, how would you prepare it for your scalp?
For the scalp, I mean,
Hopefully I'm getting
honestly,
the question right.
you can, it's a little bit tricky. Like I would probably just buy, witch hazel if you
Yeah.
want to use it for your scalp. But you can always make an infusion, which is like a fancy word of saying a tea because it's a
Mm.
leaf. So you're good. There's two different ways that you can make an infusion with water. You do an infusion, which is what most people think of. That's when you're using like really light, you're using the leaf or you're using the flower. When you're
Mm-hmm.
using like roots, you make something called a decoction, and the preparation is different for that. But yeah, basically, essentially, you make a tea. So you bring your water to a simmer. You're going to pour it over, like, let's say you want to make a cup of tea. You'd probably use like a tablespoon of witch hazel, two
Mm-hmm.
teaspoons, something like that. But you need to make sure that you cover it while it steeps. With any medicinal tea, and people are always shocked at the farmer's market when I tell them this, you have to cover it because the volatile oils, which is the medicine in the plant, escape through steam. So
Mm-hmm.
when your cup is just like steaming, all the medicine, not all of it, but a lot of the medicine is coming out into the ethers in your steam. So you may cover it and then, steep it for like 15 minutes, let it cool. And you can do tea rinses on your scalp and in your hair.
Mm.
That's probably the most like approachable way if you really wanted to like DIY it.
Mm. And Irina said rosemary is great for scalp and hair also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you could even put that rosemary in the
Mm-hmm.
tea. Irina is a really big fan of essential oils, so she probably uses it that way. So you could take, if you have like a reputable essential oil, you want to make sure that you do, because there's like rampant over harvesting and things like that, where it's not sustainable and maybe it's like cut with other things. Do your research before you buy your essential oils. Um,
I'd
but
love
yeah,
advice on that, on like any companies you would recommend for essential oils.
I mean, for like an MLM option, I actually do like Young Living. I find they're
Really?
yeah, because they
It's either
actually
Young Living or doTERRA.
I
It's like a
don't
big competition there. So
I
you like Young
know, and
Living. That's interesting. Okay.
if I was gonna pick an MLM, yes, like I have a lot of Young Living products, so I've tried it out. But the thing I like about them is that they own their own farms and you can go visit them.
Mm,
So I
okay.
really like that because they're vertically integrated, which is like what I do with my business. I know exactly where it's
Right.
coming from. I'm in charge of how it's grown and product quality control and things like that. So just getting shipped from China
Do you
or
make
wherever. I have to like
oils?
shit on
Essential
China.
oils or
I
no?
I do, but the amounts that I get are not enough to like
To like
sell
sell
because
them and
you would
gotcha.
need so much plant material because when I distill, mostly what you get is what's called a hydrosol. So these are like
Mm,
floral waters, which are fantastic. And I actually like have been using those more. But the essential oils will float on the top and you'll see it's like, 99% hydrosol and like 1% essential oil at the top. So you need a lot of plant material to be able to make them. But that being said, if you can find a high quality mountain rose herbs also has really great essential oils.
and
If you
rose
wanted
herbs.
to,
Okay, I've
if you
heard
didn't
you
want to
mention
go
that.
MLM, mountain rose herbs is great. They're associated with some other organizations that I'm a member of.
Okay.
United Plant Savers. They have their own
I
farms
love
as
you.
well. It's they take care of
Part
like
of all the
at-risk medicinal herbs.
associations. You're so cute. You're like legit a real, you're the real
I
deal.
try.
All the plant associations.
But
So
yeah,
Judy,
so
sorry,
I
go
was just
ahead.
gonna say, long story short, you could take the rosemary and you just put like a drop in your, like you're gonna wash your hair because we're talking about the scalp. You would just put a drop, one drop
Okay.
of that rosemary essential oil in your palm with your shampoo, and then and that's
Mm.
a way that you could apply it. But you could also do a tea rinse. Yeah.
I
But
feel
go
like I need
ahead.
to throw all my essential oils out now. I don't trust them anymore.
We can talk about it afterwards if you want. Which one's the best?
Um, Judy said, which form of the passion flower is best? Do you know which one is the better one, or
I
just look
think
up
it's yeah, you should look it up. I think the you're gonna
which one's
test
toxic?
me
You
here.
can find
No,
out
I
online
can't
which
remember
one's
the
toxic.
Latin name. I think it's like passion flower incarnata. I think is the one that I have.
Just look up
But
the one that's not toxic, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
there's only two types. I'm pretty sure it's
gotcha.
incarnata is the
Okay.
Latin name of the one that's medicinal. But
Okay.
they look very similar, but they have a different enough look. The flower, not the leaf. The flower has a different enough look that you'll be able to tell the difference.
Another question. And then we're going to kind of wrap up and maybe we'll hang out for a few minutes. Um, so okay. This is my mom. You mentioned something about drying the herbs completely. Was that because of the moisture? Yes, I think you answered that. Or creating possible
Hmm.
spoilage. Is that why? Yes, she already answered that. Is right because
Yeah.
of the moisture.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
plants
And
hold a lot of moisture. So exactly.
they do. And there's like a lot of different ways that you can do that. If you
Mm,
don't like, I use drying racks that have like
mm,
lots of holes in them. But I have so much plant material, like it makes sense that I would have big drying racks. You can use a food dehydrator that you just put on your kitchen counter. I also use
mm.
one of those, like if I need it like fast, I will use my dehydrator, but on the lowest setting. So it's like, I think my lowest setting is
Okay.
95 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's like
I have a dehydrator. I don't
40
use
or
it, but I
less
need to.
Celsius. You can
Okay.
use
Low
that in a
setting.
pinch. But the old school, like the folk way to do it would be to bundle your herb, tie it, and then hang it. But it has to be like if it's, especially if it's flowers, but really anything, you want to hang it upside down because then all
Hmm.
the energy is then going down into the flowers or the leaf, whatever it is that you're going to harvest. But yeah, as long as it's in, a place that's cool and dry, you don't want to put it in like, kind of moist place.
All right. I could hang out all night and I'm sure other people can. So I want to respect your time because you've got 4 kids, 2 cats, ducks, and all kinds of stuff. So summarize everything that you offer, your store, classes, everything. Where can people find you? Um,
Okay.
summarize
Well,
all the cool stuff.
we're on, unfortunately, I'm not on Instagram or on Facebook, but I am on Instagram. So my handle there is at mystic.sister. I have a
Mhm.
website that has all of my products on it for sale. It's www.mysticsister.us.
Mm.
And I do have a free ebook that's available that I mentioned a couple times. It's on the footer. So, any page of my website, if you just scroll to the bottom, you'll see it. You just sign up to my mailing list. It's not spammy at all. It's like lucky if I do it once a month. And you'll get a free ebook. It's 45 pages and it is very comprehensive. It'll take you from beginning to end, whole year of organic gardening, organic and intuitive gardening. So
Mm.
it'll go over everything from like picking out your garden plot, how to observe your land to see where the best space might be, what your zone is, figuring out your climate, how to save seeds, how to make preparations like preserving the harvest. And then also I do lead you through some like plant spirit meditations, intuitive
Oh,
communications with the plants, yeah,
cool. Love it.
recipes, all those sorts of things.
Mm.
Yeah, so I make products. I sell them in my shop and here in person in the
What kind
Austin,
of
San Antonio,
products?
Texas area. We have
Quick
lots
summary.
of herbal teas,
Mm.
flower essences, tinctures, body preparations like salves, balms, massage oils. I have aura sprays, which is sort of a
Mhm.
new product. So that they're infused with crystals, but they also have some really high quality essential oils and my flower essences in them. Yeah. And I also offer Reiki and intuitive readings.
What about classes? Is that just like
That I'm
you do
working
it
on them right
sometimes?
now. I
Sometimes you
did.
offer classes or
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, exactly. So I did a like 5 or 6 month long organic gardening workshop series in Ontario. And then since I've moved here, I've been basically like working on building community and things like that. And so now I have some spaces here to do it. So the idea is that I can take these in-person workshops, like they're like herbalism, like
Mm.
herbal tea blending, making your own like natural medicine cabinet,
Mhm.
things and going through like how to make a tincture, how to actually
Mhm.
blend herbs to make an effective medicinal tea, how to make flower essences, and how to make herbal infusion, oil infusions to like basically like
Mhm.
getting started like herbalism 101, kitchen witchery sort of thing. And then
I
I'm
love
working on
that.
a biodynamic beekeeping course as well.
We're gonna chat about that another time too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we could chat forever and your knowledge is insane. But
Oh,
when you
thanks.
offer your classes, you should think about offering Zoom because I think there's gonna like I
Oh,
love in
okay.
person, so keep the in-person vibe. I love
Oh,
it. But
that's an interesting
if
idea.
you
Yeah.
expand to Zoom, I am down. And I know you would get so many people on Zoom. It's just an idea to think about.
Yeah, I love it.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, check out her website. And then you had a code, right? For the viewers.
Yes. Yeah. So if you go on my website and make your first order, and Regina, for your next order, the
No, don't
promo,
worry about me.
no, it's all good. The promo code is Sovereign AF, and you will get 15% off your entire order.
It's amazing.
So you just
Love it.
type it in at the end. You'll fill up your cart. It doesn't matter. There's no limit. You'll get it for all of the items in your cart, and then there'll be a space for a coupon code, and you just type in Sovereign AF, all lowercase, and yeah, you'll
Mm.
get 15% off.
And there is a question. I'll come back to that after. We'll wrap up the recording because I don't want to take too much of your time. So, what do you want to leave us with? What's a little message
My
that you want to leave
message,
us with?
like I would say, don't don't be intimidated by like the vastness of it. It can seem overwhelming. Like, how am I ever going to have a medicinal garden where I'm doing all these things? It's a lot and it can feel really overwhelming, but don't let that stop you. Like, start small. Like
Mm.
sort of told my story in the beginning. It's like, I've only had a homestead now for 3 years, and I've been doing this for like 15 years, like this, like professionally, or in
Mm.
in sort of that like a semi-professional professional capacity. And I mean, when I really first started and I was starting my herbal studies, like I just had window boxes. If you have a balcony, like people in the city are probably like, how am I ever going to do this? If you have
Me,
any, like,
believe it
you
or
can
not.
get, yeah, window boxes, or if you have a balcony, if you're lucky enough to have a balcony, get
Mhm.
some pots out there. Maybe you have like a really sunny window or something like that. Lots of herbs, like especially herbs, can grow in it. Right now, I was telling you this, in these like not suboptimal conditions. So like, just do what you can. Like, take a baby step, do one thing, like get a couple of plants, like just take it
Mm.
one step at a time, and don't feel like you have to have the 10-acre homestead next year. Like, no, that's not realistic. Like, just
Right.
do what you can today, and like, be proud of that.
I love it. I love it. We're going to hang out Facebook group. So hang out for a moment. I see there's like a question or two. We'll get to it in one
Thanks,
second.
everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you, viewers at home, everybody that's watched live and on YouTube and Rumble. Thank you so much. Exciting things coming up. We have all things parasites next episode. So tune in. And thank you all for supporting this. I appreciate you so much.